I want to thank Father Chuck for having me come here, and I want to thank you for putting up with me. It is a joy to come to St. Elizabeth. It's a gem of the diocese hidden up in the hill, and you should be happy for a beautiful church you have. One of the things I learned from my relationship with Father Chuck at Our Lady of the Lake is Father Chuck loves movies, and he loves the ones that nobody knows about. And he's always telling me about a movie. And so with that, my wife, Susan, and I, we made a Lenten commitment to only watch TV movies that might have a deeper faith commitment to them. That's our Lenten commitment. And so one evening, we watched one of those off movies that many of you may or may not have seen. It was the 2016 movie called Silence. And the film is based on Shusaku Endo's historical fiction book of Jesuit missionaries that went into 17th century Japan. And they accompanied an underground Catholic Japanese church, and that's tremendous persecution. And without giving away the whole plot, one of the main characters senses that God is not really present, not helping those being tortured and brutally murdered. Why is God so silent? Why does he permit these Japanese Christians to suffer? It's a solid film, and properly, though it has the same kind of questions that Martha and Mary had in today's gospel. Just think about it. When Jesus arrived, he was met by Martha, who says, "If you would have been here, my brother would not have died." And basically her question is, where were you? Why didn't you come and heal him? And Martha goes out and calls her sister Mary, who repeats the identical words to Jesus. And you get the feeling, though, this time the words are a little bit deeper. And Mary is basically asking the universal, timeless questions about suffering. You know what they are. Where were you when my friend or parent died? Where were you when just innocent people suffer? Where was God at the Holocaust? Where is God in places like Ukraine today? Where is God today where a couple dozen people died in a tornado in Mississippi? Why is God so silent when you really need him? Well, if we look closer at today's gospel, Jesus doesn't answer Mary's question with a long-winded theological response. Instead, he says something simple. Where have you put him? And when they showed him, our Lord's response was, he wept. Think about it. Jesus' answer to all of our suffering is, he enters into people's helplessness and pain. And it's only after Jesus experiences this profound sadness does he raise Lazarus from the dead. And so what we hear in today's gospel will occur again in the Passion that we're going to read next Sunday on Palm Sunday. And this time, it's going to be Jesus and his Father. And his Father doesn't save Jesus that day on that cross, even when he was jeered and mocked. Instead, the Father allows Jesus to die on the cross and be placed in a tomb, and only then does he raise him on the third day. I guess one of the lessons in today's gospel and next week's Passion is that both of these deaths and raisings might be put this way so we can relate. The God we believe in, the God that you and I trust in, is a God that walks with us, but doesn't rescue us from suffering and death. Instead, he takes on our pain and suffering and enters into it. If we stop and listen in the quiet and silence, we see that Jesus reveals to us that God is not so much as a rescuing God, but a redeeming one. So how about us? I think it's fair to ask ourselves, are we silent to God? Do we turn our back on a redeeming God because we are fighting the world's battles on our own? Maybe God is asking each one of us, I'm always with you. Where were you? Today's gospel is about taking stock of who we are and what God expects of us. Our Lord meets us at the doorway of an open tomb. But we aren't just spectators. In so many ways, the person in the tomb is us. And there's that parallel that we have between us and Lazarus. Our tombs are sometimes often of our own making, though, wrapped up in our habitual sins, whatever they are, such as when we're unable to come to grips with envy or bitterness or jealousy. We keep all these things and more in these secret places, like our own little tomb. And sometimes it even seems like we're keep piling more dirt on top of our tomb, burying the things deep inside of ourselves instead of letting the Lord help us dig out of the dirt that's piled on top of us. Jesus, he weeps for us just like he weeps for Lazarus. And to each of us, he says, come out and walk with me on that road to Calvary that he's going to go on next week. Even when we think we've gone way too far away, strayed, and sometimes we think there's just no going back, there is. Jesus is waiting for us and invites us to leave our tombs. In a loud voice, our Lord tells us we can always start anew. The bandages and pain can come off. We can go free. And we can leave the darkness and stumbling and blinking into the light and follow the call of Jesus Christ. You see, all of our Sunday Lenten gospel readings we've heard so far this Lent, they're all about reconciliation, forgiveness, and a second chance of life. How should we respond to this loud voice that God has been calling us in all these gospel readings this Lent? And as we heard from this prophet, even way back to Ash Wednesday, we heard him say, now is an acceptable time, a time to be reconciled to God. And so, if you haven't been to confession in a while, now is the time to go. Now, in these last days of penance and prayer that we observe, as we begin to turn our eyes towards Jerusalem and Calvary, we need to remember in a powerful and personal way just what that overpowering sacrifice of Jesus was for us. It's all about salvation and redemption. It's all about Christ giving all of us, like Lazarus, a second chance. You are blessed here at St. Elizabeth's to have reconciliation weekly. But these final days of Lent, know that there's other places throughout the city that you can go. There's plenty of them. There's churches open everywhere. Jesus is just basically saying, come out. Please, welcome home. Come back to me. Use these last days of Lent to answer this call, to begin again, to take time, answer those questions. What's holding me back to being totally and fully reconciled to God? There's just no better time to answer it than right now. And by the grace of the sacrament, each one of us can be reconciled to that redeeming God. Remember, not a distant, not a silent God, but one that really wipes away our tears. Walk away from Mass today, tonight, with only one thought. We can be like Lazarus, reborn.